Well, greetings, everyone. Salutations. What's happening and all of that in your various part of the world. This is Robert Phoenix with another edition of the Astro Weather. It is 5/14/24. We're almost at 5/15/24. Some interesting birthdays in this 2-day stretch here between 5/14 and 5/15. And we have a very how would I say this? A culture changing start of the day today. And we're going to break down the chart and see just how culture changing that chart is. So that'll be the end of the show. We're towards the end. In any case, welcome. We gather here Tuesday through Thursday, and we talk about the astrological conditions in our skies, in our inner skies, in our life, in our world. And we have the best chat group on the internet. I know there are a lot of hosts that say that, but I'll put Chattoria right up there with just about anybody. And I know Frank has his people, the Frankleys or the Franks. I mean, that's an amazing crew. I'm not a follower of Marfugal, but that's another guy that has a very dedicated group and following. So there's a lot of people that have, their chat groups and their people, and I'll put Chattaria right up there with just about any of them. We may not be huge in number, but our power is mighty. All right, just to prove that, let's use here today. We got DJ MC, Misbehaving 2, Dorian McLean. We are on time. Yes, we are. Liddy Lou, she can't believe it's the 14th of May. I know. That's why I emphasize that. 5/14/24, even though I didn't see her comment. Leanne Ott. Hi, Leanne. Great to see you in here. Julia Payne from Down Under. Julia Payne from Down Under. Nearly 1 a.m. Waiting for the rain from the spray and the cloudy skies. I've always wanted to go to New Zealand. That was one of those countries that I always wanted to visit. Still is. Whether I get there or not, that's a whole other story. Kelly B, what's happening? Our resident nomad, Whitney. Old Whit checking in from New Mexico. New Mexico represents strong inside of Chattaria. Soul Traveler. There she is, the lovely and talented one, Dr. Joan S. Speaking of New Mexico, we got another painted sky person, Nora Rashid, the Queen of Speed. She's in the house. Mary Lee. Greetings, Mary Lee. I was going to bring up your 160 IQ, but I think we've given you enough illumination, enough spotlight on that. Ryan, the introspective woodworker, and Tom is here as well. TJ, going to be a Texan. TJ going to be a Texan at some point. I can feel it. I can see it in his future. Dave Sullivan, what's happening, Dave? Road trip 1981. What's going on? Vince Duger from the great Golden Gate State. And no matter what Gavin Newsom has done to it, no matter what the conditions of the streets of San Francisco or Oakland or Los Angeles are, it is still a great state. California is a great state. It's just been fucked up, mismanaged, all by design, and that will not deter from the greatness of California. Christina Jerzik, what's happening, Christina? We're doing a Scott sighting today as well. Double B Beth Berry's here. Maria, she's got a broken wrist. Wrists are tricky. Lots of joints in the wrist. The wrist and the ankle, two of the trickiest joints. Let's see who else we have. Maya Rose. Buenos dias, Maya Rose. Rainbows and Butterflies. Jackie Delario from South Jersey. From South Jersey. Justin Zagarello. What's up, Justin? Let's see who else. We do have a Scott sighting. Greetings, Scott. The Jerseys in the house representing. Claire. Yes, by far best one because it's fun, wise, and safe. Yeah, it's kind of like, sex in the 1970s before AIDS. It was fun, maybe not necessarily wise, but it was safe. Let's see, Francine W. checking in. Hello, Francine. Paula Bizak. What's up, Paula? Sharon Lewis. Julie Moss. We've got a Jasper sighting. There he is. Come on, Jasper. Let's give the people a glimpse of the old sage, the old boss right here. There he is. There he is. The Buddha of YouTube. Myths of Magic Rising and a grand rising to you. As well, Bo's here, Kabuki Theater, Harriet Bowie, hey. Platinum Happiness 2024. Personal Idaho. I like that. Susan Bull clicking in from Australia. We are international, fully international today. Awesome. Terry Catterley. She's joined us. Hi, Terry. Birds Rowdy here on the east side. East side is rowdy. You ever notice that? There's always something going on in the east side of town. The east side of town is usually the other side of town. I don't know why that is, but everywhere I've been, it's always been the east side, like East San Jose, East Palo Alto, East San Mateo, East Austin, East St. Louis. Am I right? It's always the east side of town. It's weird. It's weird, except for Seattle. Seattle, it was the northern part of the city, just beyond Cap Hill. Let's see. Nora did a Spartan race in Monterey, California a few years ago. Most beautiful place I've ever experienced. Man, California, as far as beauty goes, there's no state in the union that matches it. I'm sorry. I'm just being straight up and honest. You have the most eclectic terrain and ecology in California. You've got alpine conditions both in the southern part of the state and the northern part of the state. You've got deserts. You've got the Central Valley, which they are fucking up because they're stealing the water. You've got the beautiful redwoods, sequoias. You've got that whole state of Jefferson up in the northern part by Lake Shasta, which is really beautiful. You've got the coast all the way from Eureka down to the San Diego border. I mean, it is, environmentally, it doesn't get better than California, just in terms of the variety of the experience. Unfortunately, they've just run it into the ground, but that's another story. Okay, Glemma Spank is here. Meow meow. Who else? Patricia, just being me. She's here and checking in from Asheville. And let's see. Agree, Callie. One of a kind lived there for a bit. Nicholas Graham, what's happening, Nicholas? Good to see you choose love. Eugene, Oregon, not a bad place to be. I've spent some time in Eugene, lovely area. I don't understand the Cali thing. That's okay. Well, you had to live there, honestly. I mean, you live there and you could go from these just incredible redwood forests and Muir Woods, just like amazing, incredible redwood forest. And then 20 minutes later, you're on the coast and experiencing, reasonably beautiful beaches. And then you're not that far from like Mount Tamalpais, which is pretty magical. And then you can drop down into, like Mill Valley and go eat at Sammy Hagar's Mexican restaurant. I mean, that's just California. But it's gotten so fucked up. Anyway, enough of a postcard. Jasper, you are mugging this mic today. What is up with you and this mic? Let's get into before we get into the weather, just a couple of announcements. Uh, the locals group is happening. We've got people signing up. I'm about ready to do some more posting there today. So that's cool. Locals is taking on kind of a life of its own. And you can go to the locals page. The link is in the show notes, and you can sign up there. There is just your regular locals affiliation, and then there's supporters. And so if you want to support the show and get the added bonus content on locals, sign up and become a supporter, and you will help out tremendously. Right, Jasper? We'll keep you in cat food. We'll keep you in the pate. What else? Let's see. Hit like, subscribe. Don't forget that. If you'd like to get a reading, the link to my services is also in the show notes. And if you feel so inclined, you can buy me a cup of coffee. No super chats here, since this channel has been demonetized for well over a decade. I think we got it all out of the way, didn't we? I think it's all there. All right, let's get into the weather. Start talking about it. There we go. Oh, you know what? Yours truly is a day ahead. Hold on. My Virgo kicked in. It's a shame. I mean, I suppose we could do the weather for tomorrow, but that wouldn't be. Oh, it's interesting. I had the right day. I had the right day for the weather. I just put, for whatever reason, I put 15. So it's correct. But let me just change it anyway. So hold on now. There it is, right there. And let me re-rack this thing. I'm going to blame it on the aurora. How is everybody post aurora? Is anybody like having any weird symptoms of any type? Are we having any aurora fallout? All right, hold on. Let's see. I decided to go to bed early last night. I went to bed at 10:30 and I was up at 5:30. I even went to the gym this morning. That's the aurora effect on my life. All right, let's do this. Let's restart this. Pretty sure we got it covered here. There we go. All right. Tomorrow can wait. I was talking about this on Sunday night, which is Jasper. Are you doing the show or what? This is your microphone, isn't it? It's not even my microphone. It's your microphone. You want to come down? You want to sit on my lap? Yeah, come on. Here we go. Come on. Come on, you old podger. There we go. There we go. There we go. All right. He's very needy this morning. So we talked about this the other night on Sunday night, Astro Live. And this is a very unusual stellium with Uranus and Jupiter and even the sun now almost playing the role of the midpoint. I would say that tomorrow on the 15th, once the sun hits 25 degrees, it really is almost the exact midpoint with Uranus at 23, the sun at 25, and Jupiter at 27. So it's perfectly staggered, right? And the next time Uranus will be in Taurus will be 74 years from now. So we won't see Uranus in Taurus again for 74 years. And I haven't done the math, right? because Jupiter is engaged in 12-year cycles, and Uranus, in terms of a sign, is 7 years. So there's no guarantee that Jupiter will show up in Taurus under the next Uranus cycle. And again, I haven't looked. I haven't gone 74 years into the future because I think the only one that would probably impact would be Tondar's kids. To be honest with you, right? Tondar's youngest would ultimately experience that, right? But for the rest of us, unless we reverse engineer the aging process, like it's not really going to matter. But I'm just showing it to put it into context. Now we'll have Uranus in Gemini and then Jupiter in Gemini. I'd have to check, but I don't think that I have to look at the conjunctions because Uranus doesn't go into Gemini until next year. And I think at that point, Jupiter's either late Gemini or early Cancer. So we won't even see that. We may see it again, playing that out, that's a 7-year cycle. So Uranus will move into Cancer before Jupiter moves into Gemini again. So you can see how these cycles with Jupiter and Uranus are pretty rare, actually. And I think that I was talking about this on Sunday night, and I'll reiterate it, that we have to be aware of this and somehow capitalize on it. And so what does that mean for you? How do you capitalize on this? Well, it feels to me like number one, the Sun Jupiter conjunction is an affirmation. It's an affirmation that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay, that you're going to have whatever you need. And that's a radical thought. I mean, we live in a time where it feels like there's a lot of program scarcity. The interest rates aren't going down for houses. Inflation is driving the cost of food up. Everything is getting harder to come by. It's more difficult to afford things. So how do you combat that? Well, the radical departure would be affirming and decreeing that you will have enough and whatever you need, in spite of what the world brings you, the theoretical world brings you. It's a mindset. And then Uranus comes into play, and you kind of let it go, and you let the serendipity and the synchronicity take care of the rest. And you may say, well, gee, that's not really grounded or proactive. Well, that's the energy. That's what we're dealing with here. And what's also fascinating is the Sun in conjunction with Algol. And we talked about Algol on Sunday night, and it is the Medusa star. And we get the word alcohol from Algol. It's where we lose our head. And the idea with Algol isn't about losing your head. It's about making sure your head, which are your thoughts and ideas, and your body are connected. So this would be a radical reconnection of the mind-body experience. So what did I do last night? Okay, I'm going to go to. I have this terrible habit that I've developed because when my mother was here and she was with us, I would try to go to bed early so that she could go to bed early. And I noticed that she was having this habit of staying up late because she was afraid to fall asleep. She was afraid she was going to die. And so I was kind of gently nudging her to go to bed at the same time I did, which was around 10:30 or 11. I didn't want to stay up till 1:30 in the morning, watching her struggle to fall asleep. But I have a history of staying up late. Like, ever since I was a kid, I would stay up and watch The Tonight Show, and I'd watch The Tomorrow Show. I'd probably fall asleep at around, I don't know, 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then my parents tried to get me up for school, and I was always just a wreck. So I have this late night thing that has been part of my life, and it's easy for me to slip in. And, I'll start to watch something, a movie or something on YouTube, and the next thing I know, okay, well, let me prep for the show, and let me get everything ready for the morning. And then the next thing I know, it's 12:15. And then it takes me about 45 minutes to fall asleep. Projectors have a difficult time falling asleep, by the way. So now I'm, maybe a little bit longer, 1:15. I've missed my REM cycle. And then I get up and I get up and I get ready and I do the show and everything. But last night I said, okay, I'm gonna break this cycle. I'm gonna go to bed at 10:15, 10:30, and it worked. Right. I woke up, it was 5:30. And I feel more alive and present for today's show. And I even went to the gym and worked on my legs. So for me, this is how I'm working with the energy. And I'm attempting to expand my connection with the physical world and become more productive and get things done, which I seem to be better able to do if I wake up earlier, which means I have to go to bed earlier. And Uranus to me is like breaking the cycle, right? I'm going to do something different. I'm going to radically alter my sleep cycle. So that's how I'm working with this. And I've had to do a few other things. My relationship with PayPal, which is non-existent now at this point. Well, with the exception of some funds in there to pay some recurring payments, but that's it, right? I've had to redo my payment processors, which is fine. I have no problem with that. And what has it done? Well, it's moved me towards locals because locals uses a different payment processor. And Uranus, of course, rules Aquarius, which is groups. So I can see this, in action in my life. Some of it is conscious, and some of it is just a byproduct of other things going on in my life in dealing with things like digital payments, which is Uranus in Taurus, right? It's digital money. So, what is your approach here? Because we're not going to have this for very long. It's kind of like the Aurora effect. Kind of cool. How long is it going to be around? I don't know. But I do know that this won't be around for much longer. So I think you really want to take a conscious approach here. How do you expand your relationship with the material world without expanding your waistline? How do you affirm and decree that you will have everything you need regardless of the scarcity model or scarcity consciousness that's constantly being pushed? And that doesn't mean that you don't think about things and don't plan. I think planning is important, but there's a difference between planning and staying in fear versus planning like, okay, I've done what I can. Maybe I need to top my preps every now and then or whatever, right? And then saying it's about as good as it gets. So just let me affirm and decree that whatever happens, I'll be okay. And I think that that's really going to be a big part of our story. Because if the shit does hit the fan, then we're going to have to lean on each other, and we're either going to tear each other apart and go into kind of a Mad Max style environment, or we're going to have this new type of organizing principle in our lives, which will be much more organic and in response to what other people are going through. It's going to be very interesting. Very interesting. So I think you set the seeds for it right now. We talked about the moon in Leo and how today it's in square with all of this Taurus. So one of the things that I would certainly shy away from is flaunting your opulence and your wealth. Today would not be a good day for that. Just saying. Leave your gold chains at home. Um, the other thing too is the moon in Leo is very proud, isn't it? It's very proud. It has a lot of pride. And I'm going to flip the script on this. Let's say you're somebody who does have some needs and somebody does have the wherewithal and the generosity to reach out and say, "Hey, look, I want to help you." But that moon in Leo can get in the way and say, "Thanks, but I don't need the help. I'm good." Right? Well, maybe that's true. And maybe you're not allowing somebody to do something out of the kindness and goodness of their heart. And you might actually be able to use the help. Right. So we want to look at this in a way where it impacts us and it affects us. Leo is also children. And, we have just been witnessing so much information around the shots. And we're watching people walk shit back. You have the Cuomo brothers who seem to be radically repositioning themselves as it relates to COVID. AstraZeneca just said no more for us. We're starting to see the receipts come in. And it feels to me like this moon in Leo also has a lot to do with, mama bears and being really pissed off. The other thing here is when we deal with Taurus, we're also dealing with fertility. And with the moon in Leo, I would not be surprised that over the next, where is it at? 13 degrees. The next 24 hours, you'll hear more stories about miscarriages and women unable to bring their children to term. I wonder why. I think this is going to be in the news with this moon square to all these Taurus planets. And that would be not such a bad thing because even though it would be painful, it would make people much more aware of the damage that's been done. I mean, COVID was, how do I say this? The whole operation was so damaging on so many levels, from the personal to the familial to people with small businesses. I mean, it was just a wrecking ball. It was a thousand times worse than 9/11. Thousand times worse because it was global. It was global. So when we look at that moon in Leo, what's it doing? It's kicking right in with Mars and Aries, the true node in Aries. So the moon is fired up. It's a lot of passion. It's a lot of passion and righteous indignance. So the two aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. So be on the lookout for mama bears today. Whenever we get into Leo, we also get into things like the royalty and the crown. By the way, I'll be looking at that on 15 minutes today, which is about basically, crowning the new king under the guise of totalitarian rule. or the return of the monarchy, the return of the secular monarchy. Well, not secular monarchy, but the return of the non-bloodline monarchy. Let's put it that way. So I think there's some definitely some royal family energy in the air, and I would not be surprised if somewhere today we get some information, whatever, around Kate, who has gone MIA. Who knows? Could be cancer, could be dead, could be a divorce. Who knows? But it's almost as if she's been erased. And with this Moon Leo square, I think maybe some people will want to demand some answers. I'm not that interested, to be honest with you, but I know a lot of people are, especially people that are in England. So I think that is also part of this narrative as well. So these are the things just to keep your eye on. Looking at all this Taurus energy coming in and trining Pluto. So the changes you make, the attitudinal adjustments you make, stick. They stick. That's what happens with Pluto, especially when it's in a harmonic angle. They stick. So I like the energy today. Mercury's moving into more of a square with Pluto, but I think that that's not a bad transit. If you want to get to the bottom of something, a Mercury Pluto square is certainly going to be one of those aspects that is relentless. The downside of a Mercury Pluto square is when you hold on to your position and your ideas to the point where you're defending a losing cause, but yet you double down, you triple down, you quadruple down. Then it starts to look bad. Right. So the Mercury Pluto square can provide an individual with an opportunity to readjust your thoughts or readjust your ideas or readjust things that you have believed in. And you could say, I have to move off of this. And I've been a proponent of this for a long time. But if I'm going to be true, if I'm going to be true to this idea of truth, then I need to address it. I need to say, you know what? After more information and more uh, time with this, I've had to reassess my position, and I don't hold this belief to be true anymore, or I don't feel like this is as true as it was for me, and I'm reconsidering it. And sometimes you can just go, "Hey, man, I've changed my mind. This shit's out the window." I would say that the energies are pretty supportive, even with those squares with the moon and uh, Jupiter and the sun and Uranus and even Venus. And when that moon goes into Virgo, look out. Corrective measures are at hand, and health is right at the top of the list. All right, let's get into our True Hemp Science star of the day. Let me get my banner up here, my Bruce banner. So, of course, True Hemp Science is really the only sponsor of this show, besides me and my astrological work. And if you have any interest in CBD, please check them out. Chris is one of the most conscientious purveyors of CBD. He gets all of his hemp organically sourced, and he's the guy that is involved in the formulation, meaning he's there, he's boots on the ground, he's eyes on the prize. So from soup to nuts, he's involved. And that's when you get really good product. Not only that, but he's a bit of a wizard and has come up with some very interesting blends. So go to truehempscience.com, and all you got to do is spend $100 or more, type in 15MINS, and you will get a free goodie bag with your order of $100 or more. And I assure you, you will like the goodies in the bag. $150 or more, get you free shipping, and there's always a 30-day money back guarantee. All right, let's go to our True Hemp Science star of the day. It's George Lucas. How about that? I could have leaned into David Byrne. David Byrne was a close second. And then Jack Bruce would have been a bit of a distant third. But it's George Lucas. And when you get into his chart, um, you can see George Lucas in his chart. That's one of the reasons why I picked this chart. All right, he's a double Taurus. And so that means he's slow and steady and takes his time, right? George Lucas has only directed 6 movies. 6 movies. He directed the first Star Wars film. The second 2 films in the first Star Wars trilogy were directed by other directors. Now, Lucas had a hand in the writing credits, obviously production, overseeing the special effects, things like that. But he is not a prolific filmmaker by any stretch. His first movie, I think, is genius. It's THX 1138. And it kind of sets the stage for him in the realm of science fiction. But then he follows that up with American Graffiti. And it feels like that in a lot of ways, these 2 films really encapsulate George Lucas, because Aquarius is a sign that I usually associate with science fiction. And he has this moon in Aquarius, right, in his 10th house, which we'll get into even more. And that's all about the future. Like Aquarius is about the future. And Cancer and the 4th house are all about the past. You know, where you grew up, your values, and American Graffiti is a nod to his past. In growing up in, Modesto, California, which is where he was born, and things like hot rods and rock and roll. So you have this kind of template for Lucas with his first 2 movies. THX 1138, which is his student film that I think he directs when he's at USC. And then he gets this shot with American Graffiti, which really puts him on the map, right, in a big way, and kind of cements his um, ability to direct a large budget film. Now, he's also involved in Apocalypse Now. He's kind of a co-writer of sorts. He spends a lot of time on the set with Coppola, who is a very close friend from USC Film School. So it's not as if he wasn't doing other things. He was. But once he gets his credibility with the studio, he decides he's going to make this movie called Star Wars, which takes him back to his 10th house in the moon in Aquarius. So you can see this kind of yo-yo effect with Lucas. He starts off with the future, then he dips back into the past. He goes back into the future. And then he does this really weird um, film, Howard the Duck, which is one of the great box office bombs. And I'm not sure what the impetus behind that was, except for maybe money. But then he gets involved with Raiders of the Lost Ark. And he's a producer of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I think he's involved with some of the writing. Now, Raiders of the Lost Ark is also kind of a throwback. You know, it harkens back to like pulp novels and pulp comics, and back in the day, what they would call serials in movie theaters. Like you would go to a movie and you would watch um, an 8-minute clip, And then you'd go to the movie the next week and they'd have the next 8-minute clip. And so they would have all these 8-minute clips that would ultimately become a movie, and those were serials. So Raiders of the Lost Ark even goes back to Lucas's childhood in the types of movies that he and Spielberg used to watch or read through, like their pulp novels or their pulp comic books, right? So he's got, and then eventually, what does he have to do? He has to go back to Star Wars again. So he's got this kind of yo-yo effect with his creative um, impulses. Now, what's interesting about his second Star Wars run is that he gets wiped out by his first wife economically. Like, she takes him to the cleaners. And this is a guy who thought he was set. Because the other thing that he did is that in a lot of ways, George Lucas killed cinema. And you'll say, well, he created Star Wars, one of the greatest franchises of all time. Yeah, that's the key word, franchise. There was no movie property prior to Star Wars that had any significant merchandise associated with it. You got some of it like back in the 60s with the Beatles. The Beatles had a lot of merchandising, or the Monkees had a lot of merchandising. But you didn't get it with movies. And when Star Wars happened, of course, the toy deals started to come through. And every kid wanted Star Wars toys. They wanted Star Wars lunch pails. They wanted the Star Wars comic book on Marvel for a while was a hot ticket. So you had Star Wars, comics. You had Star Wars cartoons. Like, it became this marketing behemoth. And in a lot of ways, it killed movies. I think that the MCU is sort of the downstream bastard child of Star Wars because of the cross marketing that the MCU, they looked at Star Wars and said, this is a perfect fit. We could do everything that George Lucas did. We've got the characters in play, we got the comic books in play, and we can have all of this, all this marketing and all of these products that go along with our cinematic property. So in that regard, George Lucas really changes cinema forever. Right? It's really, Lucas and Spielberg, those two guys change everything. Could you imagine if Apocalypse Now had action figures? Now, that would have been some fucking marketing right there. I would have paid for a Colonel Kurtz action figure. Right. Or the Willard action figure, like he could even be naked and his hand is all bleeding, from punching the mirror. Right. You could have the guys on the boat. You could have the boat going up the Mekong Delta. I mean, they missed a huge opportunity for Apocalypse Now action figures. It's never too late. So what's interesting is the moon as well, because the moon really captures in the 10th house, like the zeitgeist of the public imagination. And Star Wars has been a phenomenon, an absolute phenomenon, and based on basically a combination of Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, Joseph Campbell being a Taurus, by the way, like Lucas, and the Hidden Fortress, which was an Akira Kurosawa movie. So Lucas brought those two properties together and created the Star Wars mythology. And it's really become a mythology. It's about as close to a modern religion as you can get from a movie franchise. And the whole idea of the force, and may the force be with you, and all the things that go along with it. So the moon here really captures the public's zeitgeist, the mania. And there was Star Wars mania when I was a kid, man. It was crazy. And it's continued. And I think what's interesting is that it starts off with Luke Skywalker, and now it's, pardon my language here, but now it's some chick, right? Like, she has become the focus. She's become the new Jedi. So that's also very lunar in a lot of ways. But here's that Moon Pluto opposition. George Lucas lost a shit ton of money in a divorce. So really forced him to go into the prequels. And that's where and without those 3 prequels that he directs, he's only on record for directing 3 movies. THX 1130, 4 movies. THX 1138, the first Star Wars, Howard the Duck, American Graffiti. That's it. So he directed 7 movies in total. The other thing about Lucas that I find interesting is that he's more of a tech geek versus a director, right? Like, he was the guy that he bought Pixar. He bought Pixar for $5 million. And it was, I think, an offshoot of Industrial Light and Magic. And that's all about effects. And George Lucas became an effects guy. But he's in this kind of R&D, right? Like, that's where his activity is. And I think a lot of that has to do with Uranus in his chart, because he can see where things are going cinematically, like the green screen, like everything that he did in Star Wars was a precursor to all of the innovations that Industrial Light and Magic would eventually come up with. And and Palace here gives him kind of a sense as to where things are going technologically. And he's got that sextile with Mars, with Uranus, which is, I think, pretty interesting. So he's active. It activates him. That's what gets him excited. I don't think directing films gets him excited. I bet he thinks directing films is a pain in the ass. But the idea that you could create the tools for films, he created the THX sound system. Created that. Do you know how he created it? He created it because he was working with Coppola on Apocalypse Now, and they wanted a really big sound for the helicopters and the explosions. And at that time, Irwin Allen had created what's called Sensurround, and they would use Sensurround in his disaster movies like Earthquake and the Towering Inferno. And so they asked if they could use Sensurround for Apocalypse Now. And Irwin Allen said, yeah, and here's how much it's going to cost you. And they said, well, no, that's too much money. So they created their own sound called THX. And you see it when you go to theater sometimes. You know that, whoa, right? That's George Lucas. So he's more of an innovator in terms of the tools behind movie making than actually being a great movie maker. And this is what I find fascinating about him and his chart. And he's retired and he's got billions of dollars. He's worth somewhere between $5 and $6 billion. And he's signed some kind of fucking pledge to give a lot of it away to charity, so that he's all on board with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. He's got an interesting chart. I really feel like the key is the moon. And again, it captures the public's zeitgeist, right? Their attention, and this whole idea of kind of a mass movement or mass culture or a mania. And he's got that Uranus moon trine. And and his innovations and the things that he comes up with becomes something that people can project their imagination onto. I think he's got uh, an interesting chart for sure. Um, he's got some dogged determination with Mercury and Venus conjunct in Taurus. So he's pretty stubborn. He likes working behind the scenes. He's not somebody who has sought any amount of fame whatsoever. Um, and I just think it's amazing that it was the crisis of his divorce which forced him into the creation of the next series of these Star Wars films. And then, of course, Disney buys it and he becomes even richer, which, there are some people who lament the fact that Disney bought the Star Wars. Everything about Star Wars, Disney owns now. He is the second largest stockholder uh, with Disney, with the exception of Steve Jobs's family. Steve Jobs' family and foundation are the largest stockholders in Disney. So between Lucas and Jobs, they own a significant portion of Disney. So if George Lucas ever divested from Disney, or the Jobs ever divested from Disney, it would be a rough day for Disney. Anyway, there's your guy, George Lucas, your True Hemp Science star of the day, an innovator, a tinkerer, um, clearly a magnet. He's almost the opposite of Orson Welles. Orson Welles creates Citizen Kane, which is massive, right? It puts him on the map as being this wunderkind, and it's a blessing and a curse for Orson Welles. And he makes all these movies, and some of them are not very good. And he dies almost broken, penniless. And George Lucas comes around and he creates Star Wars, and he could have bankrolled just about any movie from that point forward. He wanted to do a film on Alexander the Great, but that didn't work out. But he doesn't, right? He doesn't go the Wells route. Instead, he moves into innovation, product development, franchise value, and will likely have a very different end than Wells. Clearly, he will. So there you go. True Hemp Science star of the day, George Lucas. Please join us over on 15 Minutes. We're going to talk about the call for tyranny, a dictator, and the warm embrace and hug of the new fascism. An uplifting topic of conversation. So come on over there. Link is in the show description. Hopefully, one of the mods put it in the chat. We hope to see you there. All right. Have a blessed day, everybody. Make the most out of it. We'll be back here tomorrow. Bye for now.